Best Constitution of Our Bodies by Galen. 1. What is the best constitution of our bodies? Is it the same as that with the best mixture? This was the opinion of many of the ancient doctors and philosophers. Or is it rather the case that, while the best constitution is necessarily one with the best mixture, a constitution with the best mixture is not necessarily the best? For the health of our homogeneous parts consists in a well-proportioned mixture of hot, cold, dry, and wet. But the construction of the animal on the basis of all these parts consists in the position, size, shape, and number of the component elements. And it might appear possible that a body composed of a very large number of well-balanced parts may nevertheless have some defect in respect of their size, number, construction, or relationship with each other. Let us then consider all these matters in order, and let us begin with the terms which are necessarily used in the discussion, since these too are the subject of some dispute. Some talk of the best constitution, others use the term state, skesis, condition, or nature of the body, and so on, according to their individual opinions. Now, I have no objection to people employing whatever terminology they wish, but I do think it wrong to make objections to other terms. For I believe that one's greatest concern should be with the actual matters under discussion, not with the words for them. If then someone adopts any terminology he may wish, that of best constitution, or state, condition, skesis, or nature of the body, or any other, provided that he begins from an agreed conception and then proceeds towards the discovery of the essential nature of the matter, using some sort of order and method in his inquiry, such a person will be far more deserving of our praise than one who displays a virtuosity in the use of terms. Let us therefore follow this procedure, and begin with a shared conception, apply to this the methods of logical distinction, and thus move on to what follows in the inquiry. 2. What is the conception which all men share of the best constitution of the body? For it is possible that though people use different terms, they are yet all thinking of one and the same thing. Everyone speaks in favor of the healthiest body, as also of the most well-conditioned, and in most cases they are looking at the same object, and applying their conception to it without subtle distinctions or an ability to communicate it clearly. Nevertheless, they think it a good thing that the activities of all their bodily parts should be strong, and not liable to be overcome by pathological causes. Of these phenomena, that of having one's activities as nature intended is health, and the addition of a certain degree of strength makes it good condition. Both have the common feature that they are not readily overtaken by disease. And so, the well-conditioned is the healthiest arrangement, and the goal of all men. It happens incidentally that this arrangement also has two other features, namely, that the activities function properly and that it is not readily destroyed. For this reason, the term good condition seems appropriate for it. This notion of stability is implied in the term condition itself, and even more so in the term good condition, which suggests the best possible condition. With regard to the best constitution of the body, too, then, the application of either epithet healthiest or most well-conditioned is perfectly correct, and the criterion of it will be that the activities function properly, and that this fact is not readily altered. So much for the basic definitions. We must now address the question: what is the essence of such a condition of the body? And here the starting point of our inquiry must be the investigation as to what is the nature of the body at the time when our functioning is at its best. Now at this point we must make reference to matters which have been demonstrated previously in other works. First, that our bodies are a mixture of hot, cold, dry, and wet. This was shown in our treatise on the elements according to Hippocrates. Secondly, that one must distinguish between the mixtures of different parts, as discussed in our work, Mixtures. The next point is that each of the organic parts of the body has a single cause of activity of the parts contained within it, and everything else that goes to make up that organ as a whole comes into being in accordance with that purpose. My treatise, The Usefulness of the Parts of the Body, gives an adequate demonstration of this. It would thus seem plausible that the best constitution of the body is that in which all the homogeneous parts, this of course is the name given to those which appear single in nature to the senses, retain their proper mixture. The composition of the organic parts from these homogeneous ones is then a matter of the best balanced constitution of them with regard to size, amount, construction, and relationship between each other. That body in which all the functions are working at their best can easily be observed also to be the body least subject to illness. For the part which functions best is a product of both good mixture of the homogeneous parts and well-proportioned constitution of the organs. But this is the nature of the body described above. Therefore, its activities will be the best of all. That is also the least prone to illness may be gathered from what follows. 3. There are two causes of harm to our bodies: external influences and excretions from food. External influences are, for example, when someone is heated, cooled, moistened, or dried beyond the appropriate level. Exhaustion, grief, insomnia, worry, and all such matters should also be put in this category. There are two general types of harm arising from the excretions from food. Meanwhile, as these excretions may be defective in either quantity or quality, there are, of course, many specific differences within this. Now, the relative immunity of the well-proportioned body to external influence is clear from the very fact of its good mixture, which is equidistant from all extremes and therefore not liable to fall into imbalance. Yet the fact of good function is also a reason contributing to this immunity. It will be the least susceptible to the efforts of exertion. Such a body will automatically be endowed with the best humors of all, and will thus be better able to withstand grief, anger, insomnia, worry, rain, drought, plague, and indeed all causes of diseases. It is ill-humored bodies which most readily succumb to such causes, since they are in themselves already near to a state of disease. The state mentioned above, then, is the least vulnerable to those external influences which beset and injure the body. Nor is it prone to illness arising from excretions from food, as can be seen from the following consideration. It is not possible in such natures either for any mass or ill humor readily to accumulate, or, once accumulated, to cause any serious damage to the animal. For the correct proportion of the natural activities to each other, in addition to the virtue of each individually, prevents excretions from coming into existence and causes the speedy evacuation of those which do come into existence. If, moreover, they do remain for a long time, the state is the least liable to become dominated by them. Susceptibility to domination by the cause of diseases is a feature of weak, ill-balanced natures, while the capacity to withstand them over a long period is a feature of well-balanced, strong natures. Natures of the sort which we have described as the best. The indications of this kind of nature, considered in terms of its good balance, are given in my treatise on mixtures. Considered in terms of the correct proportion to each other of the organic parts, they appear in the 7th book of The Usefulness of the Parts of the Body. Let us remind ourselves of them again here. We have shown in our writings on health that it is not a narrow concept or absolute single or indivisible, but rather one that may admit of considerable latitude. If, then, our discussion is to be of any value to practitioners of the art, it would appear sensible not to confine ourselves to the construction, in our argument, of that rare body which might be called the exemplification of the canon of Polyclitus, but to include also bodies which fall short of it in some small respect, without, however, manifesting any large defect. For in this way we will be easily able to recognize the best constitution of the body, even though its occurrence be a rare one, and also to distinguish all the others which we encounter every day. The body, which is perfectly correct in all ways, with no ill proportion in either the homogeneous or the organic parts, is not something encountered frequently. In fact, one comes across it only at quite long intervals of time, whereas the body which is slightly inferior to it may be observed quite regularly. Now, the perfectly well-mixed body is the median between smooth and hard, hairy and bare, broad-veined and narrow-veined, between great pulse and small pulse, and the body which is perfectly well-proportioned in terms of the organic parts may be simply described as being of the same kind as the canon of Polyclitus. Those which are hotter than the norm, but not by much, as also those which are colder, wetter, or drier, to only a moderate degree, but which have one part which is not correctly constructed, will all at times manifest some excess with respect to the state of good proportion. A harder body will be less susceptible to external causes of disease, a smoother one to internal ones. Similarly, a denser body is less susceptible to external causes, a sparer one to internal. Hippocrates' statements in his Nutrition that, quote, spareness of the body is healthier for transpiration in those in whom more is taken off, but unhealthier in those in whom less, refers to the effects of excretions from food on health and disease. For it is not Hippocrates' purpose in that work to discuss only those bodies which are healthy or unhealthy in the straightforward sense. His discussion also includes all good and bad effects arising from food, and therefore naturally also bodies which are healthy or unhealthy as regards to their excretions. Purely in the context of excretions, the sparer type of body is healthier and the denser, unhealthier. Conversely, the sparer type is more prone to all external influences, while the denser type is less so. It is therefore yet another advantage of the well-proportioned body that it cannot be termed either spared or dense, just as it is in the median with respect to the other oppositions, so too with respect to this. Of course, an excess in either direction is in one respect superior. The denser body is less susceptible to external causes, and the sparer one to internal ones. There is no body which is genuinely immune to both, but that which is at the median between all excesses is, as it were, moderately so, and therefore this one is called the healthiest of all. Therefore, that body which is drier than the state of good proportion is less susceptible to any moistening cause, and that which is wetter is less susceptible to any drying cause. And so, as stated a little earlier, the median state is not that which is least susceptible to disease in every way, rather it is inferior to each in some single respect, but it is the most desirable state overall. It was discussed in Mixtures that such a body need not necessarily be large, small, or medium-sized. Let us consider this point here again. Large bodies may be so simply by virtue of a large quantity of matter, and small ones by virtue of a small one. In the same way, a large statue will contain a large amount of bronze, and a small one a small amount. But neither fact will prevent the statue being well proportioned in its parts. The best mixture of the body consists in it not being dense, spare, hard, soft, hairy, or bare, irrespective of its size, and if such a body additionally preserves the correct proportions of the organic parts towards each other, it will thus have a perfect constitution, which will also make it the most beautiful of bodies to behold. Excess or deficient size of the body comes about in two ways. Excess size through an excess either of moisture or of matter. Deficient size through a domination of dryness or a lack of matter. Now there is growth so long as the bones are still being strengthened, and this process is completed while the size is still small if there is a lack of matter, or if there is dryness. And therefore size is not a straightforward indication of moisture, nor smallness of dryness. For every body increases its growth sooner or later for two reasons. If what is large were also automatically soft, and what is small, hard, then it would be true that the one was wet and the other dry. But if these attributes are inseparable, it is pointless to consider the question of size or smallness. The specific indications of the mixtures are sufficient, and these have been discussed more fully in Mixtures. If then the above account is accurate, the best constitution of the body consists in two things: good mixture of the homogeneous parts and good proportion of the organic.